Hello everyone and welcome to Soul GPS. In this episode, I wanted to talk to you about borderline personality disorder. A lot of people have been asking about what it is, how it manifests, how to recognize it. And I wanted to make a separate video just on BPD because it really, I feel, can be tricky in recognizing it for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons is because it operates on a pretty wide scale, and the scale can range from mild traits, character traits, all the way to very malignant and toxic personality. And once it's in the stage of malignancy, I think it's much easier to recognize. Whereas if it's just traits, you can still feel very much bogged down when you're around these people and have these really weird sense of just questioning yourself, questioning your own behavior, your own thinking, which is, I think it's healthy in general to do that. But when it becomes kind of this obsessive thing and you're finding yourself taking blame for too many of the things that the other person is doing, then that's definitely a red flag. And also, one of the main reasons why I think it can be so very tricky in finding out whether you're dealing with a toxic person is that they have the ability to be empathic. Whereas people with, for instance, NPD, with narcissistic personality disorder, they often can't. And so they're much more mechanical in the way that they they manipulate us and relate to us. Whereas, and it's kind of like comes from more from the intellect, whereas BPDs can sense a lot of things that are going on within us, and they can kind of call us on it in a really uncanny, creepy way. So here are some of I compiled a list. I have quite a bit of notes for this episode today, since it's a very rich subject. So here's a list of ways that you can recognize that you're dealing with a BPD. So one thing first that comes to mind is the extreme highs and lows. You're feeling like one moment you're just having a time of your life, you're really enjoying being with this person, and it's like heaven, and the next moment you're like descending to the pits of hell. One moment you feel that the person really cares about you, the next moment you feel like they just couldn't care less. They can become very callous, even violent. They're constantly putting you down and invalidating your own point of view. It's like you can't have your own opinion. It feels very threatening to them. Then they're going to act very different in front of people. They're just put on this, oh my gosh, do I ever remember this? They're going to put on this show. And I was very complicit in that. I will admit that whenever I was out with my partner and, we would just be having time of our life, people would think that we are soulmates and we're amazing together. And then behind closed doors, things were very, very different. They're going to question your rationality in arguments, even though you may have solid argument when you're fighting about something. They're going to use very irrational arguments that really make no sense, but still be able to sway you on their side and question your own stance, your own position. Often it's because they know how to pull on your strings and know your vulnerability, so they will attack those. You're going to be walking around feeling like you're a time bomb that is just about to go off. It's like you're constantly having to put a lid on your emotions because you're afraid that if you say anything, it's going to trigger the other person. It's going to lead to this huge argument. So you figure it's better not to do that. So you're going to stuff all those feelings inside. You'll feel that this person will isolate you by demonizing members of your family and friends. And they do that often over time. Now, again, it depends how malignant they are. Again, we're talking of a spectrum. And they might do it subtly and slowly, just by, for instance, pouting when you're away with your friends, or they're going to just all out say that, you know, your family members are horrible, and, you know, and oftentimes, you know, people that really do know you and they're seeing changes in your behavior might start to try to tell you something, and the BPD will pick that up, and then they're going to demonize them. Their behavior will be erratic. It's going to go up and down, swing, like big mood swings. Emotional dysregulation, it's one of the most characteristic things that defines a BPD. So they'll be impulsive, they will be moody, and you will often feel like it's just years of suppressed anger that they have carried that's coming out at you, even though you haven't really done anything to them. Maybe you just met this person, right? You've been together for a few months, and now you feel like you're being punished for all the injustices they have ever encountered. And you never know who you're going to get. So again, hallmark of emotional abuse. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, going back and forth between the two. So one moment you're like, you're not sure, you're walking on eggshells. Is this person going to be kind and nice to you, or are they going to projectile vomit their issues onto you for no apparent reason? So to cope, you find yourself taking a blame for a lot of the things that they're saying or doing, because again, you just want to put things down. The fire down. You don't want to, be stuck in repetitive cycles of arguing. So you take the blame. Which is also another reason it's really difficult to put out those fires, is that even in arguments, their objectives and goals are constantly changing. So you don't know what they even want. So you find yourself guessing, and it erodes your identity. You're confused about what you're feeling, and you find yourself often grieving the relationship that you used to have, but that you seem to no longer have. You feel often threatened by your partner. They're telling you they're going to harm themselves if you leave them, which is a horrible form of emotional blackmail. You barely know who you are. This is where I find to be the contagious side of being with that kind of a person. When you're around them, you're just like, it's just like them. They're empty inside. They don't know who they are. So that is beginning to rub off on you. You're losing your sense of self. Also, it's because one moment they idealize you and they tell you how wonderful you are, and the next moment they denigrate you. So you feel like, wow, you're so appreciated, and the next moment you're vomiting on, and it's a horrible form of abuse. They see things in black and white, so you're either wonderful or you're terrible. Other people, either great or bad. One day they're their enemies, and next moment they're their best friends. So black and white thinking. They love something or they hate something. You're often feeling like you're being lied to, and then you're accused of the lying. It's like they have a way to just like shift the blame and turn things around, and oftentimes, in order to make excuses, because you've invested so much in this relationship, you convince yourself that this is normal, which it isn't. There's a great quote I wanted to say by Janice Covels, who wrote this book Imbroglio, Rising to the Challenges of Borderline Personality Disorder. And Janice said, trying to define BPD is like staring into a lava lamp. What you see is constantly changing. The illness not only causes instability, but also symbolizes it. Yeah, so it's really, really difficult to be about these people. It's like you get this really weird sense of like they tell you like, I hate you, don't leave me. So on one hand, they're pushing you away, and on the other hand, they're trying to keep you in, which also is a way of projecting the greatest fear, and that is the fear of being abandoned. Or another way to put this is keep your distance a little closer. Stay away, come close, stay away, come close. So it's really incredibly crazy making. Recovered BPD AJ Mahari says borderlines and non-borderlines live in two different worlds that coexist in the same space, but not always in the same time. Comprehending the real world for me as a borderline is as formidable as the task of understanding the borderline world is for you. So yeah, we do live like there's almost like a glass that exists behind us, and it's really, again, really difficult to deal with these people because they do evoke a deep sense of us wanting to help them. Because especially when they're on the trait side of things. So I want to talk about that for a little bit here. So there are 4 types of borderlines, ranging from mild all the way to malignant. On the mild side, there are people who are much more prone to self-harm. They do needle poking, banging their head against the wall, sometimes quite literally. They cut. They really talk a lot about suicide, and they genuinely hate themselves. They can't take the inner dialogue that they're dealing with, because that's another thing that's really characterizes this disorder, is they think really bad and low about themselves, which is different from an NPD, for instance, who just thinks that they're just the greatest thing. They're the cat's pajamas of this world. Whereas BPDs, they struggle so hard. They feel a tremendous sense of void and emptiness, and they think like they're worthless, they're useless. And so on the more trait side, on the more turned within personalities, we have the hermit or the wave. And the hermit is characterized by feeling fearful about the world. So they have more of the paranoid part of a disorder that's really active within them. And I'm going to go through a list of comprises borderline personality disorder, because it's a really rich, very dismal, but very rich landscape, inner landscape. And the wave is more on the helpless side. So a person who is the hermit are going to have a tendency of feeling paranoid about the world, isolating themselves, feeling like they can't deal with other people. And so once they partner up with an empathic, codependent type person, the empaths are going to want to help them and, somehow make them feel that, make them realize that there's nothing to be afraid of, that they're okay, and so on. So you can get caught up as a person who partners up with them with trying to aid that side of them. The way feeling helpless, they can get you sucked into their world, and you're going to be put on a hamster wheel and constantly trying to help them. But the thing here to remember is that this is part of their identity. So they don't necessarily want to be helped. They don't necessarily want to be rescued, because they have such fragile sense of self to begin with, that the moment that you're going to show them that, there's nothing to be afraid of, and that, they can help themselves, they're going to most likely slide right back into those forms of behavior, because that's part of their identity. So it's really, really tricky dealing with them. Now, when we look at the more on the side of this personality disorder as it manifests on the malignant side, we are looking at the queen or the witch or the king or sorcerer, as I like to add, because there is this common understanding that most people with borderline personality disorder are women. So the characteristics, the descriptions tend to be focused on the female side of the spectrum. And it's about, they say 75 to 25% split. I have heard some other people saying that it's actually 50-50. It's just much more difficult to recognize in the males, because it's so often comorbid meaning that it coexists with the NPD, but I don't really know, so I'm just letting you know the things that I have come across here. So the queen or the king are controlling. They want to make sure that they have their power, they draw their power from feeling like they have power over you, over other people. Oftentimes, I think it really stems from the fact that they feel chaotic inside. They feel like they don't have control over themselves. Therefore, they need to project that control over other people. That's how they can feel a sense of stability. It is on the malignant side of the spectrum, because these people deliberately do things to their victims, to their targets, in order to have their way with them. So they're going to get to know you really well. They will do a really good job at interviewing you to get to know your vulnerabilities, and then they will use them against you. They will use the things that you feel uncertain about. They will take your doubts. At first, they're going to try to make you feel like they're your friend. They're there for you, and then they will turn that against you. So the witch or the sorcerer, very sadistic people, they actually enjoy watching you squirm. They enjoy watching you in pain. I mean, how much worse can this get, right? And they use others to project their inner mess onto them. So again, we're dealing with projectile vomiting. So they're going to, because they feel so horrible inside, and because they are constantly, their inner voice is sadistic towards them, the moment that they're doing that to other people, it's going to alleviate their own pain for a moment. That's what the literature says. So they will not have to be focused so much on themselves. They're going to be now focusing on the other person. Again, I think that this one is very highly comorbid with antisocial personality disorder. Okay, so let's look at the name borderline. Where did it come from? So apparently, back when this disorder was first diagnosed, was being first defined years ago, the reason why they called it borderline is because it exists on the border of neurotic and psychotic. Neurotic, meaning it's a little bit milder form of a disorder where a person is very preoccupied with their own obsessive thinking. They have it definitely contains dissociative elements. So they're no longer here in the present moment. They're kind of caught up in their own world, and they're mulling over, obsessing over thoughts that are generally very self-destructive. The psychotic is when they take that inner world and project it outwards to the point where they're hallucinating, where it's not so much that you take life's events that are happening and then interpret them in an emotional way. Like, what does this mean? Something just happened, something terrible. Wow, I should be afraid. I should be running for my life. I'm in the middle of a fire zone, right? You should feel fear. You should run away. You should feel self-protective. You know, or if somebody's openly harming a puppy, you should want to feel angry and want to interfere and say that this is the wrong thing to do, right? Well, what they do is the reverse. Their inner emotions are so overwhelming that they're going to take them and project them onto reality that is calm, and nothing bad is happening. It often happens in partnerships where a person can feel like they're just going out of the way to do anything and everything they can to help their partner, but no matter what they do, it's always wrong. So this is because the erratic emotions that are going through the borderline, the person who's afflicted with the borderline disorder, they're going to project that onto a canvas of reality, even though it has nothing to do with what's happening. And here's actually, I have a really interesting quote of somebody who is a non-BPD living in a relationship with a BPD. His name is Jack. This is taken from a really great book I'm reading right now, which is called Stop Walking on Eggshells, and it's by Paul Mason and Randi Kreger. And here's what Jack says. This quote really stood out, so I wrote it down here for you guys. It says, if I asked her about her unhappiness, she told me I was too sensitive and paranoid. If I ignored the unhappiness, she said I didn't care about her. If I praised her, she thought I was up to something. If I criticized her, I was trying to hurt her. If I spent time talking to her 4-year-old, she wanted to know what I was asking him. If I played a simple game with him, she criticized me if I won. If I wanted to have sex, she wanted it to be her idea later. If I didn't want to have sex, I was a homosexual. If I spent time alone, I was up to something. If I spent too much time with her, I was needy. If I wasn't 30 minutes early, I was late. If she wasn't ready, and I sat down to read, I was rushing her. So it's like, no matter what you do when you're with that person, they're going to find something wrong with it. Okay, so we went over the 4 types of BPD. I'm going to actually put a link down below to an article that talks a little bit more about the 4 types. I think it's really interesting. There's lots of information online about this, so I'm not going to go too deeply into it. So here I wanted to give a big shout out to Chris Godinez. I'm going to put a link to a video of hers that she put out. And what she did is she really broke down borderline personality disorder as being an amalgam, a combination, a pizza pie of different, a variety of personality disorders. So I'm going to go through it quickly. Again, if you want to go into it a little bit deeper, you can look at her video. But she talks about the fact that there are actually an amalgam. And when you listen to what I'm about to read you, you're going to see how in some ways I feel for these people, you know, especially when they are on the trait side. It's, again, the inner voice and the inner landscape that they're dealing with is incredibly, incredibly toxic. It still does not excuse the fact of their poor treatment of you. And it does not mean that you should be the one helping them. You did not break them, so you shouldn't fix them. These people should seek therapy and should seek help. Which again, if they're on the milder side, if they recognize that, you know, what they're doing is they're doing as opposed to you're doing, if they really want to change, if they really want to make the relationship work, they're going to seek help and they're going to take active steps towards changing their behavior. If they don't, then you got to do what you got to do in order to get away and protect your safety. Okay, so here we go. Number one, they have the narcissistic personality disorder. So BPDs, it's all about them. Their drama is about them. They're drawing your attention and everyone's attention onto them. Histrionic, very dramatic and very superficial, making mountains out of molehills. I guess that's how we say it. So that the tiniest thing that happens to them, they're going to blow it out of proportion. They're also going to have a very superficial way of relating and communicating. Oh my God, I haven't seen you in ages. You know, da-da-da-da-da. You look amazing. Even though they might not think that, da-da-da-da. And they're just like this overinflated way of acting. It's in order to draw the attention onto them. If somebody else, when you're in, say, having a party or you're in company of more people, if somebody else takes the stage, tells stories, you know, does something in order to have their light shine on them, they're going to do anything and everything they can to usurp that. They will feel very uncomfortable when somebody else, again, is taking center stage. So that's histrionic. Number three, antisocial. What it means is that the rules don't apply to them, laws don't apply to them, norms don't apply. Very big concept here with boundaries. Antisocial means that they do not respect another person's space. They're going to trample all over it. They feel like they have the right to. And yeah, so that's one way to recognize a psychopath, sociopath. They just don't respect. When you say no, they don't respect that. Try to say no to a person like that. They're going to get really upset. Next one is avoidant. What that means is that they're not going to get engaged in anything unless it is assured that they're going to win. They're obsessed with winning. Again, very fragile sense of self. So, and they always think that they're losing. So even if they're going to say, I'm done, I don't want to argue anymore, you won. They're going to say, oh, that's just another trick they used against me. They won, right? Because it was handed to them too easily. I mean, it's just like, oh, I've been through that so many times myself. It's really upsetting. Like you, it's like they lock you up in the corner you, and you just don't, no matter what you do, they're going to find a way to accuse you of being horrible to them. Next is obsessive compulsive. It's both on the level of thoughts and behaviors. It's hoarding, not just things, but also thoughts. Meaning, once they latch on to a cluster of thoughts, once they feel like they suspect something, or you know, they think of something that it just can't let go, they're gonna like drill it and drill it and drill it. It's almost like, makes me think of propaganda. It's like a home propaganda. What do the propagandists say? They say, make the lie big, repeat it often, and eventually, sooner or later, they will believe it. And I feel like that is the case of what happens when we partner up with people like this. They're going to make up a lie, they're going to project it, and drill it, and drill it, and drill it, until you're like, okay, fine, I did it. So, obsessive compulsive. Excuse me. Next one, rejection sensitivity. They hate being alone. Again, this stems from an incredibly low self-esteem. They hate being alone. They have to get that supply from other people, that attention. and are so afraid of being abandoned, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, back to what I was saying earlier on, when they say, I hate you, don't leave me, right? Or give me a distance. No, you come a little closer, but keep distance. So they do this back and forth. They want you to come closer, and then they will push you away. And it's really easy to also get caught up in this game here, where you feel like you want to be the one being chased by them, because they're kind of like the chasers, right? Especially the males who have the NPD elements, is they're going to go after that. They're going to hunt for the woman, and then once they have her, they're going to like not be so interested anymore. It is so toxic. Don't fall for this. Don't fall for this game. Next is dependent personality disorder. I think it's called the personality disorder. Anyway, they're very dependent. So somebody needs to tell them what to do. They need constant approval, hand-holding along the way. Because again, they do not want to fail. And in the event that they do, it's your fault because you told them to do it. Okay. Next is paranoid. So everyone has an agenda to want to get them. That's more, again, on the hermit wave side. When they are going to switch their thinking, switch their filters, so that everything they hear people are saying to them or doing to them is in some way in order to sabotage them. Schizotypal, basically you can sum it up by magical thinking. I love how Chris just she just summed magic. Once she said magical thinking, I'm like, yeah, I get it. So basically what they will do is they will have this really, and it also I think goes with NPD, they have this inflated sense that if they do something, the smallest thing, and there's a big cause, a big effect, they feel like they have caused it. So I know some people like this, especially this can be very much exploited by the New Age movement, where, if you wear high heels one day, and there's an earthquake, oh my God, you have caused it. I mean, it can get that crazy. All right. So yeah, you feel like you can influence world events by your actions. The other thing that was mentioned here is that it can include inappropriate clothing. So, wearing sweaters during summertime, or wearing something very provocative to a business meeting. All right. So yeah, these kinds of people, they have a very toxic internal dialogue. Not the kind of thoughts that are going on in their heads. So they dissociate a lot. They withdraw into, worlds that they conjure up, and they will project it onto other people, even though there might nothing might be happening that is dangerous, that should be triggering them. But they still will do that because they feel rotten. They feel very bad inside about something. Being with these people, I find to be very contagious. So this is I'm speaking from my own experience here, is that whenever I'm around them, I feel like the life is just kind of being sucked out of me, because they do somehow find this button in me where I do want to empathize with them, because they also have the ability to empathize, as I was saying earlier. They're not as disconnected from their feelings as the NPDs are. In fact, oftentimes their feelings are much more inflated. So when I'm around them, having really thin skin, I can pick up on it, especially if they're people I care about. So I feel like my attention goes right away to them. And it's like, what can I do to help? What can I do to help? And so I want to alleviate the situation. And again, I have been through this ringer so many times, because even though I have come out of my way to try to help them, they always slide back into the helplessness. As you can probably discern, I'm dealing a lot with the wave types. They slide right back into the helplessness because it's a part of their identity. As fragile as it is part of their identity. So, and yeah, they're amazing reflectors. I wrote that down too. So because again, they have the ability to empathize, they can reflect very easily whatever is happening within you on their own face. So when you're talking to a BPD, it's almost like they become a reflection of you. It makes me think of, I don't know if you're a fan of the Game of Thrones, Arya. she had this no one teaching where she would be putting on masks of other people and acting as them. I almost feel like this is something that the borderlines can do. It's a power on their side where they can just, you know, rip the mask off of you and put it on them and start behaving and acting like you. I have noticed in social situations how the BPDs I know can so much like match their voice to the person that they're talking with, their accent, their mannerisms, but yet like there's this their true identity that kind of like seeps through, which again, if it's the wave type, it's like it's kind of like it says to the world, I'm hurting, help me, I'm hurting, help me. And they can be smiling and having a good time seemingly, but deep inside it's that chronic hurt that is seeping through, and it's tugging at the heart of the person they're interacting with. And if it's an empathic person, they're going to be like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm just so drawn to this person. I want to help them. I want to do anything and everything I can, because the helper inside of us is feeling, wow, I have a purpose now. I have something to do. And it begins very subtly. It's almost like just the subconscious is awakening. And before we know it, we get knees deep with these people. And then we're just working ourselves to the bone day and night to try to help them. And in the end, they don't really do anything with that. They don't care because it's part of their identity. Okay, so just real quick, I'm also going to put a link down there about the 9 criteria for diagnosing BPD. It's going to be a long video, I can see already. But I'm just going to go by it like point by point real quick. I'm going to put a link, so if you want to go deeper into that, you'll be able to do that. So in order to be diagnosed as a BPD, you need to meet 5, that they need to meet, or you, if you're watching it and you suspect you may have this, 5 out of 9 criteria from the DSM. Number 1 is frantic efforts to avoid abandonment, whether it's real or imagined. 2, pattern of unstable relationships. And I would also say here, careers, work, like these people get fired a lot. Unstable self-image, very fragile sense of self. Impulsivity, as in an addiction to shopping, sex, drugs, alcohol. Impulsivity, I just said that. Suicidal behavior that is recurring. Yeah, they do that a lot. They also can use it if they're on the malignant side. They will use it to control the people. Severe oscillation of moods from euphoria to dysphoria. Happy, sad, like you never know what you're going to get. Chronic feelings of emptiness, walking around with this deep sense. I remember I had that for years. Part of it is because I've been, like I said, around these people since I've been growing up, and I didn't know that it was, I've taken it on because I've been around, again, very contagious. Frequent anger or rages without really any reason, just, you know, tiniest thing can set them off. Paranoid ideation or severe dissociation. So living in this illusory, hallucinatory reality and feeling like somebody's gonna get them. All right, so now what do you need to do for yourself in order to protect yourself when you're around these people? First, I want to talk about what happens if you're like not sure whether you're dealing with a BPD. I have questioned it a million times, and I finally came to the conclusion that, you know what, I am too a little bit guilty here of black and white thinking, because I want to like pigeonhole and say like have all the proof and the evidence. Yes, I'm dealing with that person, and that somehow is going to change the way I am relating to them. And again, these people can go back and forth. One moment they can give you, sometimes for not even moments, for days, they can be wonderful. You know, they can, again, they're very intuitive. They know what you need. They're going to ask you about you. They're going to rarely talk about themselves. You're going to feel like, wow, like this person is really there for me. And then before, like when you least expect it, they can flip on a dime. So here's what I want to say is I want to go back to the intuition, which is a theme of this channel. So how do I know? How do I know these days that I'm dealing with somebody who's, you know, not good for me or who has a covert agenda? is I feel something hurts inside. I feel uneasy. I feel deflated. So when I'm around NPDs, I can tell already that it's kind of like I'm being stabbed in my gut. I get this stab, but now like my immediate reaction, I've conditioned myself to do this over the last few months, is that I immediately withdraw and step back and I observe. And it's almost like I put my arms like this and I'm just like, oh my gosh, and I'm watching a spectacle. It just takes a little switch, and especially with the more overt NPDs who are not so good at hiding their behavior, I just like, oh my God, and I just go through the checklist like, oh, they just did that, check, 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 and now I know who I'm dealing with. But I don't get as much physically or emotionally affected anymore. If I deal with a borderline, it's very different. So I feel like my shoulders are caving in. I feel like somebody just put like a straw in my gut and it's sucking the life out of me. I just get more and more and more deflated. And so then I do a little test. I'm wondering like, oh my God, am I just empathizing with somebody who's genuinely hurting, or am I being manipulated? And so what I do is I remove myself and I go to another room or go to the bathroom and I just sit there with myself for a while. And usually very soon my energy comes back and I'm feeling better. And that's how I can tell like, oh my gosh, I'm actually dealing with a manipulator. So gaining distance and stepping back is really crucial, especially in the early moments of interacting, when you just meet somebody and you're starting to feel like you're being bombarded, like your body is being hit with these emotional invisible bullets. Take a good note of how you're feeling and why. And maybe you're having a bad day, but if that is the case, if it's coming from within you, if you step back, you're still going to feel it, and you're going to most likely have a cluster of thoughts that are being associated with your state, something that just happened before, not something that happened as a result of this interaction. So again, something to keep in mind. Okay, one more thing. So the black and white thinking. So I have been guilty of it too. Again, I think it might be because I have grown up around these people. So I've been prone to doing this. Also, kids do that often before they learn to fuse the two together, that a person can be good and bad. We're shades of gray, right? We are a mix of things. So you might be, BPDs are shades of gray too. They might be a little bit darker than your average person, but they will still have the light parts of themselves, the light moments. So the key is to, again, when you're really up close and you're seeing the black and white, when you pull away, you're going to see a much more complete picture of gray patterns. So do not worry so much whether this person is indeed, falls into these categories. It really doesn't matter. I like what Dana says of Thrive After Abuse. She says she doesn't even call people narcissistic or borderline anymore. She just calls them problematic. And I think that's really genius and brilliant, because if this person is causing you problems, I'm sorry about this banging. If this person is causing you problems, if this person is making you feel like you're questioning yourself, like you're taking blame too much for things that are happening, like they're invading your space, again, that's a thing I think that's really big with borderlines, because they're so good at emotionally manipulating you. Not so much like at the NPD, I feel like they're more aggressive and magnetic when you're around them, whereas the BPD is invading. I also like to look at the difference. I'm going to actually make a video that compares the two. And look at the BPD like a sun with really bright rays, and it's attractive, it's magnetic. You're just like, like this person is very charismatic. Whereas a BPD is more like a black hole. They suck you in. There's a certain darkness about them. All right, let's see. So what can you do? So first of all, get away if you can. Notice how differently you feel when you're on your own versus when you're not. Distract yourself if you're obsessing about what they have done, what they have said, and so on. Try to distract yourself. Go see a movie. Go to a gallery. Do something that you always wanted to do. Go to the gym. Just try to, like, mindfully, this is not you're distracting yourself because you just for the sake of feeling better. This is a test I'm talking about. Distract yourself by putting a boundary around you just so you can feel yourself away from this person and see, do you feel better when you're away from them? And then take those feelings that you have regained, your sense of self, your balance, and then enter in back the space of the NPD or the BPD and notice how that is being sucked out of you. That's how you'll be able to tell if you're dealing with a problematic person. And it almost doesn't matter how you are going to label them. But they have found a way to use your energy to feed on it. All right, so it's a lot like energy vampires. Now, do not take things personally. Again, this is easy to say, hard to do. So what they do is a reflection on them. And this really goes along with all people, whether they're personally disordered or not. If you were receiving constructive criticism, it looks really different. So again, if they're accusing you of things and you take them personally, like, oh, I did this, I did that, you're most likely being projectile vomited on and manipulated as opposed to being delivered constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is warranted, meaning you both agree that it's going to be delivered. It is context related, not person related. It's about a behavior. It's about something you do that you can improve, not about who you are. Problematic people, let's just go with that for now, they are going to attack your personality, your whole self. They're not going to, your persona, even deeper. They're going to attack your psychic space as opposed to some particular behavior. They're going to say, you are this, you're that, not like, you did that, let's work on improving it. So, and it always starts when you're getting constructive criticism with something positive, with the strength. So there's like a sandwich technique that people who deliver constructive criticism use. They're going to tell something that's great about you, then they're going to deliver in a most diplomatic, sensitive way something that you might want to improve upon, and then they're going to reinforce it with the strength again. So because this is it's been proven that it's the most effective way to affect change. These guys, they don't do that. And also usually there's a recommendation for improvement. I'm actually going to put another link down below this video that talks a little bit more about how to deliver constructive criticism, so you can really look at it and think about it, so that when you are being projectile vomited on or accused of something that you haven't done, you can say that, wow, this is really not about me. It is really about them. They're projecting their inner self onto me, as opposed to trying to make an improvement in what I do. So it's very, very different. Another thing you can do is, once you feel you're safer, you're in your spaces, dig deep to find out what is making you want to stay with these people. Are you being manipulated with the fog, fear, obligation, guilt? If so, where does it come from? Where does it originate? Seek support and validation. Support groups, friends, coaches, therapists, they can all help you. Focus on doing more of the things that you like. Again, this is going to make you reconnect with who you are. I don't know what's banging so hard. I think it's a window I left open. So focus on doing more of the things that you like. So again, you can draw the line between them and you. It becomes a visible boundary you can rely upon. Recover your sense of self and self-respect. The more you're putting yourself in, and the more you're going to let them abuse you, the more your sense of respect is going to start to erode. So again, we're talking back about boundaries. Either low interaction or no interaction with these people. You did not break them. You cannot fix them. They need to fix themselves. They need to seek therapy and help themselves. Also, by taking on their share of responsibility and trying to fix it for them, you are also robbing them of growth. So on a spiritual level, when we look at it this way, you might want to look at it this way. You might want to see this big picture that we're doing the work for two, well, general, we actually don't. We're only doing work for one. We're doing work for other people. We're very good at helping others. We're not so good at helping ourselves. Like if we were to take all the things that we do for the sake of the other person and do it for ourselves, that's where you want to go. That's the path towards healing. But if you're doing everything for them, you're robbing them of their own growth. So they remain stunted. They remain like children. So we need to give them the space by, again, either going gray rock, completely no contact, so that they are able to face what they have within them and work it out. Because if there's a will, there's a way. And the kind of therapy that I keep coming across that's very good for borderline personality disordered people is mindfulness, DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy. I don't know very much about it. I haven't studied it. I don't do it. I don't have any training in it. But it sounds to me like it is basically making the person with borderline personality disorder. And I think that it's really good also for people recovering from a relationship with them, because again, there's a lot of contagiousness. There's a contagion thing going on here that where we picked up their inner dialogue within ourselves because they have denigrated us so much with this, like what they do to themselves when they berate themselves, they're going to start berating us so that they feel a little bit better. So now we're stuck with that. So this therapy, what it does is basically it brings you back to the present moment. So you are no longer projecting your inner state onto the how things are. You can instead focus on calming down, creating peaceful situations for yourself, and just focusing on doing whatever it is that you're doing. So you're chopping your veggies, you're on a walk, you're talking to a friend, you're watching a movie, your attention is singularly focused. And the other thing is working on your self-esteem, which is improving the inner dialogue. So you're spying the thoughts, you're challenging them, like, I'm stupid, I'm lazy, I'm an idiot. Really? Am I really stupid? Like, why would I think that? Well, I have actually, I have a very fulfilling career. I like to work on projects. I take good care of myself, or used to before I was with this person, right? So challenge that and then override it by saying, I am actually a truth seeker. I am a person who likes to work hard when I do the things that I enjoy. I am a kind person, a good person, loving person. So first you can do it on paper, and eventually you can do it automatically in your mind. So catch the feelings, the thoughts that are denigrating yourself, challenge them, and then rewrite them. Okay, so very long video. I hope that it helps you. Again, I'm putting the links down below. If you have been dealing with a borderline personality disordered person, I really feel for you. I've been there myself. It can be a long path to recovery if you don't know what you're doing or if you don't know what you're dealing with. I have dealt with it for years. I have no idea what was wrong. I thought it was all my fault. Being able to see that it wasn't, that and also recognizing the high contagious nature of BPD onto an empath, I think is extremely helpful. If you need help, you can contact me. My information is down below. I have a free program on my website. I can help people who are just first recovering from this kind of toxic relationship. It's called SOS, which stands for shock, reorientation, strength. And also I do coaching, both email and Skype. And if you do need help, I would be honored to work with you. So feel free to contact me. I'm getting a lot of questions from you guys regularly. I'm planning to address them in the near future, in the near videos. I have now returned back to Poland, as I've mentioned in my other video, due to death in my family. So I'm going to be here for a while. Since I'm not traveling, I'm going to be focusing more on answering your questions here. So I have lots of videos planned for you. And so stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video if it helped you and you feel like somebody else may benefit from it. And I'm sending you lots of love from Poland. And I wish you a beautiful day. Take care. Bye-bye.